passionate, she's fun, and she's inspiring. Let's welcome our host, Kimberly, from Entrepreneurs Rocket Fuel's Web Summit, and a warm welcome to you. Thanks for joining us, and we've got an exciting guest coming right up. Kimberly, take it away.
Well, hey folks, it's Kimberly Hobshide with Entrepreneurs Rocket Fuel and the Passive Income Web Summit. I am super excited. I have one of my dear friends from Santa Barbara here. It's Melodee Meyer, Master Mel. She is absolutely fantastic, and she's going to talk to us about how to make royalties from a book we've always been intending to write. And I speak from personal experience with Master Mel. She is an incredible speaker, but she's also an incredible friend and an incredible force in this world, helping us create passive income from a book that we've always been meaning to write. Welcome, Mel. Oh, I can't hear you. It was working just a second ago. I can't hear you. Can anybody else hear Mel? Oh, there she is.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Awesome. Glad to have you with us. Okay. Oh, there's something wrong with the sound again. Sorry. No, it's like a mechanical sound, like there's an issue with the microphone, but it was perfect just a second ago.
I'm trying now. Can you hear this now?
Yes. Yeah, it's perfect right now. Yeah.
Okay, let's go with that. That's weird. This has never happened to me before. Never. Everything flawlessly goes with technical with me. I'm not sure why. All right. All right. Well, here we are. We are actually talking about one of my favorite subjects, okay? Passive income or mailbox money, right? We love to make money without having to exchange our time for it, okay? But that doesn't mean that we don't actually pay with our time at some point in the process, right? Kimberly, you've probably been talking about that a lot this last couple of days. It doesn't mean you don't put in any time or that you don't put in any energy. You do have to do it. It's just passive income is all about leveraging, and books is one of your best levers when it comes to leveraging.
I totally agree with that. And yes, as we've talked about, the whole idea behind the Passive Income Web Summit is that we have a set it and forget it strategy. The set it part is where you do the work, right? And in the next 60 days, wouldn't it be nice if we created things that, well, instead of watching Netflix, that we created something that created passive streams of income that would pay us for days, weeks, months, even years to come. And a book is one of the ways to do that, just like an audiobook. So Mel's going to talk a little bit about how to create a book in 60 days and freaking knock it out. Right?
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you that there are ways to write a book and get a book out there in much less than 60 days. I make a promise with the 60 days only because people go, okay, that could happen. But if I told you we could do this in a week or we could do it by this weekend, like that would send people like, yeah, no, people can't deal with that idea, but it's true. You literally can take things that you've already written, things you've already spoken, things you've already done, and then leverage that into a book. Okay, there's many ways to do that, and we'll talk about that in our time together. But there's many ways to leverage work that you've already done. And if you haven't done it, then there's ways to do that very, very quickly. But this is really a strategy for people who want to really break through, okay? Like there is so much, here's the number one reason that I find for people who they don't write a book. They say that they don't have time, okay? That they don't have time to write a book. That is because they have a belief that they have to lock themselves in a little log cabin up in the woods, you know, up in northern Canada somewhere, okay, and crank this puppy out on, you know, on an old typewriter, okay? No, that's not true. But here's the thing. The whole excuse about time really is covering what I find people's actual number one reason is that they're afraid. Okay, they don't know what to do. They're afraid to do it wrong. They're afraid to pick the wrong subject. They're afraid they can't write. They have so much self-doubt because they've never done it before. Now, if you've never done something before and you're being asked to do it, of course, it's not expected that you're going to do it with complete confidence, but that's why you just need a little help. You just need a little help to kind of take you across the street, step by step, so that you know the way. And there's lots of help out there. And there's lots of ways that are already proven so that you can get what it is that you want. But you have to get over the fear. You got to address that fear. You got to understand maybe even what that fear is all about, and then do it anyway.
I like it. And Master Mel is called Master Mel because she's actually, no fooling, a 6-time black belt, and she could tie you in a knot if she wanted to. She totally could. That's no joke. And she's absolutely phenomenal. But getting past your fear is really kind of a big thing in martial arts, because really conquering that makes you sort of come into the world in a bigger way as soon as you can walk past that fear, because everybody has fear. Everybody has fear. It's just a matter of getting past that fear and who's taking the steps forward. And even if you're terrified of getting on stage, which several of my speakers that have been on this summit are like, have confessed to me, like, it scares the crap out of me to get on a stage. And then we get on, we have a ton of fun, and it's a lot easier once they get past their fear. And the same thing is true with the book. And I think a lot of times people are like, but I don't want to write the book that is going to like be everything about me and define me as a human being, because it's my novel and it's going to be the one novel that's out there that defines me, and it's not perfect yet, so I don't want to put it out there because it's not perfect. So what do you tell people that say that?
Okay, well, it's never going to be perfect. Okay, it's never going to be at a place. I mean, really, even if you take some piece of art that you think is fantastic, it could always have been improved. It still could be improved in some way. Like, there's always more that you can do. So you got to get rid of that idea. Secondly, you got to really get clear as to why you're doing it. Why do you want to write a book? And when you get clear on your why, and you and I have talked about this a lot in the past, really knowing your big why will help you with your motivation to get through some of the obstacles that will come your way for sure. Right? But you have to know why you're doing it. So if you're doing it because you want it to be the work of art that defines your life, it's kind of a big expectation. Here's what I tell my authors that I work with. I go, right, everybody has inside of them the book that could change the world. Okay, everybody has that inside of them. We're not going to write that book right now. Okay? Let's not do that book right now. Let's just do a book. Okay? Let's just do a book. Any old book. Let's do a bad book. Guess what? When somebody is introduced and about to get on stage, because you have to have a book now to get on stage, okay? When we used to have stages.
That was not fair. We have stages. This is a stage, virtual stages. No, I know what you mean.
When someone is introduced for a stage, okay? And they are the author of, okay, do you know if that's a good book or not? You don't know.
No, but they are the expert on that subject because they literally wrote the book on it.
Wrote the book about it, exactly. And then I have a little secret to tell you. Nobody's going to read her book. Okay? Now, that is the sorry truth. Not many people read books. The people who need to read it will read it, and then that'll change their life. That's awesome. Okay, but most people will not read your book. So why are you so afraid to give it to them or to present something? So know why you want to write a book. Okay, and I help entrepreneurs really write a book to help their business, okay, to set them up more as an authority in their industry, and so they can be introduced as the author of this book, where they can put down their main ideas so people can understand where they're coming from. It also is a great place to tell your story, a little bit of your background, so you don't have to spill that every time you talk. It gives a real nice background. People get to peek behind the curtain a little bit and see who you are. All of these are really, really great reasons to write a book. I mean, I've had business people. I even had a guy who owned a carpet store, okay, a carpet store. And he wanted to write a book. He'd always wanted to be an author, but he also wanted it to help his business. And he's thinking, what am I going to write about, you know? And so what we did is we figured out what his customers' main problem was, you know, what their big questions were that caused a lot of angst for them. And we identified that problem.
What was that?
Yeah.
What was the big angst?
What was it?
For the carpet? Yeah.
So they're afraid, they don't know what type of flooring they should have.
Okay.
Like they go in to pick a carpet and they're just going by looks. And then they're going by what people are telling them, like what it's made out of and what's the good thing. But he outlined it all in this book so that the researchers could go all to one place and go the pros and cons of hardwood flooring, the pros and cons of carpet, what different kinds of carpet. And he just laid out, and these are things that he knew, like just off the top of his head. There's no any big, research project or anything. These are things that he would tell people when they come in anyway. But this way he got to write a book about it, and it actually became a bestseller because people were really interested in knowing when it comes to renovating their house, what kind of floor covering that they should choose. So it's things like that. You really can write a book for any reason and for any purpose, but it really helps if you know what that reason and purpose is in advance.
All right. I think that's really key. And I think if you know your why, then you can start the process of writing your book. But you told me I could write a book this weekend by stuff I had already created. And Lord knows
Yes.
I created a lot of stuff. So how do we do that?
Well, you're going to look for, well, again, it comes down to why you want to write the book and what it is you want to get out there. Okay. So if you've got some material that's all about one particular subject that you have a lot of passion and drive for, and it would really help you if you had it all put together, then it's just a matter of collecting all those articles or those talks that you did. You can have things transcribed. You can put them all together, and you can literally give it, if you don't want to do that work, you could literally give it to an editor to do for you. Right? There are it's called a content editor, where they're actually working on your content and pulling it all together and making sure that it all flows together. That's no problem. Maybe it's a project that you would like to take on. You can, and you can do it in a fairly short period of time if you commit the time to do it. But I've done projects like that in 6 to 8 hours, just, compiling. I'll give you another really good example. So I have a friend, and we had this contest with this group of people I was with about who could finish their book the fastest. And I'm thinking, okay.
That party. That sounds like a party I needed to be invited to. Absolutely. That would probably motivate me to get it done.
Well, I'm thinking, I wonder if I could get it, because we were all meeting together for a weekend. I'm thinking, I think I could get a book done by the end of this weekend, and just from pulling different things together. Well, this friend of mine, went to his hotel room that night and he pulled all of his favorite quotes and did a quote book and had it done by the next morning.
Oh, okay? My God. I love that.
His favorite quotes.
I actually have that. I actually have my favorite quotes assembled together in a particular format. I should totally do that.
It's a book. It's a book. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. People often think of a book as it's got to have these chapters and it's got to have all of this stuff. And that's a typical book, but there's so many different kinds of books. And in fact, a gift that I'm giving to all the listeners is an actual PDF where I've compiled like 26 different kinds of books, best-selling book ideas, so you can get out of the idea like you have to have all this content. I mean, it could be a picture book, it could be a quote book, there's so many different kinds of books that you could put together, just depending on what it is you want to do with it. That's it.
I'm mad now. I totally am going to do that quote book. Dang it. That's a genius idea.
You're welcome. Well, listen, I'm putting together, Liz, I used to do my course, and I still do my book writing course over an 8-week period. But I'm actually going to put it into a weekend right now because people do have time. And I'm going to teach that over a weekend so people could literally crank it out right away. So If that's something you're interested in, finally, Kimberly, let me know.
So Mel and I have a long history. She actually, she gave me a huge discount to participate in one of her courses, the Ultimate Bestseller Formula. And I actually do have a book. I actually am an international inspirational best-selling author twice, but it's in a compilation book. And I really wanted to do a book under my own name, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, Mel, I should take your course. And so she let me into this course, and it was a 6-week course. And I'm like, awesome, I'm gonna totally get my book done. And I didn't do any of the homework, and I didn't do any of the follow through, and I didn't do any of the pre-work. And I called her up and I'm like, but wait, I really want to do this. And she goes, Kimberly, the thing is, are you actually gonna write a book? Like,
She was so busted.
Yeah, so there's
busted.
that. Yeah. So now I think I have a book I want to write. It's gonna be my favorite quotes. I think that might actually work.
It's a good way to start. So I always say start easy. Okay. Don't try to do the big book, okay, that you think could compete with something on the New York Times bestseller list, okay? That's too much pressure to put on yourself as a first-time author. Why not get a few bad books done? And it's not going to be bad, but I just like to tease you like that, but it's like, seriously, someone who has a book, I don't care, and I don't actually, let people write bad books per se, because I get my fingers in there. But even if you were to totally do it on your own and just blow it, okay? Let's say you don't know anything about interior design, and you're just putting up any old thing, and you don't know how to spell, and you didn't even put it through spell check, all of that. Okay, let's say it's just the worst manuscript ever. You uploaded it to Amazon. You're all, yeah, I did it. Okay. I got to say, you're still ahead of the person who says they want to write a book.
Yes.
Okay?
Oh my gosh. Thank you for saying that out loud. Because I am in the audiobook business, and people will come up to me in meetups and they'll be like, I want to do an audiobook as soon as I finish my book. And I'm like, when's that going to be? They're like, but I'm 90% done. You know what 90% done is? Not done. It's not done.
It's not done. I meet people all the time. Yeah. I've met people, all the time that have been working on their book for 10 years. Okay, let me just tell you something. Something you started 10 years ago, it's not even relevant anymore.
Yeah.
Like, you're not even the same person anymore. Yeah. The book that you write now is only going to be it's a snapshot. It's like a photograph in time.
Yep.
Okay. 6 months from now, a year from now, you're going to be thinking about that completely different. Does that mean you regret that book and you wish you'd never written that book? No, you wrote that thing. Good on you. Okay. Yeah. Now it's time for the next book. Why do you think that writers, like, there's so many writers that are really prolific, that write 20 and 30 books? Because they always have new ideas coming to them, and they're on to the next thing. They're evolving. It doesn't mean, you don't even have to believe what it was you wrote in your first book after a while. Like, you don't have to, right? And like I say, it's all what you want to do with the book anyway. Like, what is it that you actually want to do with it? And if you're counting on the book itself being your passive income stream, it's not much of an income usually, okay, as far as from the actual royalties. Okay, so a lot of people think that. I did a compilation book once for a bunch of people, and I was trying to get all their stories to put in the compilation book. And it was actually called Black Belt Power. And it was stories from a bunch of different black belts about, something that had happened to them that really, that was, big moment in their life as a black belt. And so I'm getting these stories, and some of them are very famous martial artists, and I'm getting stories. And one person said to me, well, how are you going to divide up the royalties? I'm like, you think there's going to be royalties? Like, okay, so are there royalties when people buy your book? Yes. But how much does the average book make in royalties, do you think? Kimberly, do you know? Have you heard the statistics?
So I would say over what lifespan? Like over
the lifespan of the book.
The whole thing. I'd say maybe $300.
Yeah, you're very close.
Really?
Okay. Even, yes, even books that have sold really well, your royalty varies depending on what you choose when you put it up, let's say on Amazon. Your royalties vary from 30% to 70%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if your book sells for $20, which most books don't sell for that much, let's say $10, that's more realistic.
Yep.
Okay. Your book sells for $10, you're going to make between $3 and $7 on that book. And so how many books are you going to sell?
About
Most
100.
authors, 90% of authors make under $3,000 on a book.
Okay.
Okay. So what people think, oh, if I get a traditional publisher, then I will make money, royalties. And it's actually not true either. So what happens with traditional publishers, if you're a celebrity and a publisher comes to you and says, we want you to write a book, and you go, great, they'll give you money as an advance.
Right.
On your book. I have lots of professional writers who are friends of mine, and they're so excited when they get $10,000 or $20,000 as an advance on their book. But that very rarely happens. That is if people really already know that person, or that person already has a following of some kind. So when we talk about passive income, I really want to be clear that there's lots of ways to make passive income that's not solely relying on royalties, all right? That you can actually use your book as a leader into another product that you can create passive income on. Every course you have should have an accompanying book. Okay, so you have a course, it has an accompanying book. Go ahead, Kimberly. I can't hear you.
Sorry. So it's an opportunity for you to be able to cross promote things. So from your course, you can promote your book. From your book, you can promote your course. From your podcast, you can promote your book, which leads to your course. From your YouTube channel, you can promote your course, which leads to your book, which leads to your podcast. So this then creates that momentum of customer experience and the customer journey for them to know and like and trust you. And if that's all you have to offer, fantastic, then they're going to go spin around in that journey for a while. But if you also have a higher end product where they're like, you know what, I want to work with Melodee directly. I want her to personally help me with something, or I want to buy a higher end program, then these are great lead generation tools for you to be able to get that.
Yeah. And a book has been found to be one of the best lead generators that there are. You'll see all of the big online people, they always use a free book, either as a download, or, we'll send you a copy, just pay for the shipping and handling. Okay. So that shipping actually ends up covering the cost of the book. And, and the person feels great because they didn't have to pay full price for the book. So a book is a great lead generator for sure.
All right, we have a question in the chat because we mentioned quotes. So the question in the chat is, how does one go about getting permissions needed to include quotes in your book?
You don't need permission when you quote people. You just need to, identify the author of that quote.
Great answer.
So you want to, yeah. No, but let me just share something that came up for one of my authors one time. Is you really want to check out that is the actual author of the quote. For instance, Nelson Mandela, very well known for a speech that he gave. And people have quoted what he said in this speech. And people have said that it was his quote and identified Nelson Mandela as the author of that quote. But really, it was Marianne Williamson. Okay, he was quoting her, but he did it in a talk, and then people assigned it to him. So you really want to make sure that the quote comes from the person that you're saying it came from, not just the person you heard it from.
That's a really good point. And while we're talking about it, I think maybe Rita was alluding to copyright infringement or something to that effect. And really, it's about, there is a general 10% rule. So are you stealing 10% of a block of content, or is it really not? are you really using, like, are you taking 10% of somebody else's talk and just using it without assigning them? Then that is copyright infringement. That's just a general guideline and rule. You probably want to talk to a legal counsel about that if you're going to be using substantial amounts of other people's material. But if your quotes are mixed in with other quotes and you have content in between those quotes and your take on that particular quote, that's a different matter altogether.
And literally, you can just use the quotes as long as you assign the ownership of it. Yeah. Another question that people have a lot of in the same kind of arena is, you know, what if you want to use a story and use somebody's name? And that's where it gets really touchy. You are allowed to always share your own experience of things, but you got to know that you could set yourself up for some legal troubles if you don't have permission to share some of those stories. So they wouldn't necessarily have a leg to stand on and be able to prosecute, but it could cost you money just to be in court. One of my authors, one time, she had somebody, she needed to share what had happened to her, and she just didn't use the person's name. You change the names and things like that so that she didn't have to deal with the wrath of that person.
Yeah, and it really doesn't mean they have to be right in order for them to sue. They can sue you and tie up a whole bunch of your time and money. So you want to be careful with that kind of thing so that you're treating people in the world as fairly as as kindly as possible. Probably is better than fair. It would be fair for you to use their name, but once you name names, you actually have to be really careful about libel and other things like that. Because
I also heard, I was actually just reading about, I forget what book it was, but Wayne Dyer wrote a book. I think it was his intention book. Anyway, somebody that he studied under got very upset because they said that he literally took what he had taught him and put it in and made it into a book. And here's what I have to say about that.
Well, I want to know what you have to say about that.
Well, because I feel very strongly about this. Here's the thing. Always give credit to where you learn things from. That's just the kind and right thing to do. But keep this in mind. There is no original thought. Okay, that original thought you think you're having, someone else has thought that too. Don't know how to tell you and pop that little bubble. But if how I like to imagine it is that about 3 feet above our head, there is a stream of ideas that are just floating around, and you reach up and you grab one, okay, and you go, oh, this is mine, mine. Okay, but really it's available to everyone, and there could have been someone else who had that or used that idea, whatever. So really, like, your uniqueness is in who you are. It's not in your content. Okay, like, stop making your content so precious, okay, and your formula so precious that you can't, like, give credit and be open and actually just go, this is the way I do it because it works. You know, the way I teach people how to write a book and get it out there, it's not unique, but I teach it in a way that people who like working with me love to do it. And they get great results, right? And so someone else, like, who may not, like, be a good fit with me, like, on a personal level, okay, they don't like my voice, or they don't like the way I laugh all the time, or the way I call people out sometimes, you know, like when I'm straight talking with Kimberly, whatever. You know, we all have our own personalities, and who we are. That is the uniqueness that we bring to our material. So that's what's precious. You're precious. The way you look at things is precious, but just get it out. Get it out. Don't worry. I've had people say, well, I don't want to get out. People just copy me. Really? Have you heard that before? No, seriously. People say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
People will say that if I write out my whole formula in a book, then people won't have to work with me. they're not going to work with you anyway because you're stingy. Okay. Stop it. Stop being so stingy and just put it out there, and people will work with you because they like to work with you and they need to work with you.
Awesome.
We have another question here, Kimberly.
Yeah, please speak to the children's book market. Any leading topics, maybe price range, average number of pages? Would you recommend publishing or self-publishing? And then maybe some places to sell other than name brand stores.
Yeah.
Not
Okay.
really a fiction writer, but what I know that you have knowledge in this aspect.
Yeah. So I'm actually working with a children's book right now, not my own, with one of my authors. And it's a whole other ball game for sure. Here's the thing. In the formula that I use for writing books, the major amount of time is spent in research. Okay? Research is your friend. Research is what, if you do a lot in research, then the actual writing or the actual getting out of the content of your book will take no time. It's not the writing that takes the time, it's that research. And if you're using it to promote yourself as as an entrepreneur in some way, like whether that be a writer or a speaker or a small business owner, whatever, then you're not only doing research about a book, but you're doing research about your market and what your customers want and what they need and what they need to hear from you. So when it comes to children's books, start doing some research about it. But here's the thing you got to know about that is that, you say about leading topics. Topics are changing all the time. Okay, so, but what is the topic that's going to help you with your business and what is it you love to do? Okay, anything that you've got passion and that helps fuel your book very, very much. So things will change. Is there an interest in children's space for the children's space for historical fiction? Good question. The only way to know that is to go, and Amazon's very good about letting you know what the best sellers are. Okay, so see what's selling. But when it comes to things like that, you got to know that a lot of books get traction from what you do with the book, not just the book itself. Okay, so you could create an entire movement for kids, entire series or special characters, or there's lots of things you could do that it's not just that the book is just part of. And that's one thing I really like to do with my authors is to come up with a marketing plan of which the book is just a part of. It's kind of like short-sighted to think of what's the marketing plan for the book, because the book is just a picture, the snapshot of time, and we're going to be moving on to another time pretty quickly. But how does this book fit in with the overall strategy of what it is you want to do with your business or with your life or with your interests?
Now, I'd be interested to know if you're a history buff and you actually teach history, maybe you want to tie that in. One of the things that I'll share with you is with regard to children's historical fiction. There was a series that came out when my kids were growing up called the Magic Treehouse series, and it was based on the kids would go up and they'd be in this magic treehouse, and the treehouse would go to a different time in the world, right? And then they'd go out and they'd meet all these different characters, right? And it was very compelling. My kids loved it. It was probably 36 or 40 books in the series, and we had to get them all and read a different one every night. And, it had a themology that you could follow each time. You knew when they were climbing up the treehouse, something was going to happen. You knew what, like the magic treehouse would spin and spin and spin and then land. And that happened in every book. And then, they had, it created its own momentum, but that was just the device, if you will, to get children to learn about historical fiction, because it would take them back. It even took them back to dinosaur times. It took them back to different times during the French Revolution. It took them different times. And then it would talk about meeting different characters that were from history. So if you can do something like that and make it creative, and make it really your own, that absolutely it can take off like wildfire. That was certainly a bestseller and sold me 40 copies, right? it was something my kids wanted me to read them every night. But it depends on how you approach it and what you're doing with it. So is there a market for it? Yes, but you would need to create your own special magic fairy dust, if you will, on it in order to make it be a huge success. Would you agree with that, Melodee? You don't have to agree with
and
that.
I would even, no, I do. But here's the rub becomes the amount of time that it takes to write an entire book and to flesh out all the characters and do all the things that is going to take is not going to give you your research answers very quickly. My suggestion is to take your idea, write a short story, and go read it for some kids.
Not a bad idea.
Read it, get their input, see what they liked about it, because they will be the ones that will determine whether this is, or for parents and kids, or read at some PTA or whatever. It's like, do the research with a sampling so that people can get a taste of it. And we'll also tell you, like, oh, they like that, but they don't like that. Or, not very many people are interested in that. I can't get any bites on even just coming and going and doing a reading at the library or whatever. So it's like, do a little preliminary work before you invest in an entire book or an entire series.
Yeah, really good point. And that goes for all kinds of entrepreneurship and all kinds of passive income streams. Like, just do a little research, find out if there's a market for it before you go out and launch full bore into it. I have great stories about a guy that we call Crickets, who launched an entire program based on something that he knew was very, very valuable for himself that got him really far in marketing. And he launched the entire thing, did it all so it would be online and automated. And he launched it and he heard crickets. He's like, we got nothing. We got no response. And that's because he really didn't do any research on what people wanted to buy. He just created something that he thought was valuable, and he didn't do any market research first. And if he was trying to sell it to himself, man, that's a great product or service. But if you're trying to sell it to other people, maybe find out what they wanted to buy first. So that goes for books, that goes for any passive income stream. Just test the market. Make sure that you're floating in a pool that people want to swim in, and that would be a really good, that program has legs, if you will. So Melodee,
well, if I could just jump in with going full circle where we started this time together, is that you have to know why you want to write it. So for instance, I've got 4 grandkids. So if I write a children's book, I'm writing for them. And if anybody else likes it, that's fine. But it'll be like a legacy thing that I'm doing for them. Way different than thinking, oh my gosh, this better pay off and I better make some money off this in the long run. I better sell, 10,000 copies of it or something like that. No, that would be a happy accident, but that's because my why would be completely different. If you're writing a book for the money, then that's a criteria of which you need to do tons of research on to make sure that there's money there. And then I would have other streams of income, of ways to use that book that's not relying solely on book sales, because you're just going to be disappointed in that case.
Really good point. And that's one of those things, that books are part of your stream of income, but not the only part of your stream of income, that one feeds another. Just like we were saying in the beginning, great loop around, that your book can feed your podcast, can feed your course, can feed your larger program, can feed back to your podcast, can feed back to your book, and have these sort of leverage off of each other. Melodee, thanks so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. If you guys don't already have an idea for a book, I would love for you guys to pick up Melodee's 26 book ideas. I just put it back in the chat. Grab that now, and that's a great way to connect with Mel. She can get you information on all kinds of things, but not just books. She's actually a real expert on making sure that you get seen and heard in the world, which is a big passion of mine. I feel like there are too many entrepreneurs who are being overlooked, who are not being seen, who are not being heard, and she can get you out there in a much bigger way, building your credibility, even getting you on TV, ladies and gentlemen, no kidding. So connect with her. She's an amazing human being. She's an amazing force in the world. We're really lucky to have her here today talking about how to do passive income through books in a variety of ways. Mel, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Kimberly. Take care.
Absolutely. Before we let you go, and we're going to dance out of here, but before we let you go, any final words of wisdom for our crew?
Listen, do something that you love, okay? And a book, if you don't love writing, don't write it. Speak it, sing it. It doesn't matter. Okay, just lean into more of what you love and what you're passionate about and share that with the world. That's what the world needs, is what you're crazy about, what you're passionate about. That's what it needs. Not these other things you think are going to fix it from your head. No, from your heart. Spill it, baby. Share it with everyone.
I love it. Okay, people are asking about the replays. If you missed this one or any of the other ones, you can email support@erfsummit.com. That's support@erfsummit.com. And my amazing assistant, Mercy, will hook you up with an amazing way to get copies of the replays. This entire passive income web summit is available for free on our Facebook group. It's also available on Hey Summit, the platform we're launching on, and also my YouTube channel. So there's a variety of ways to get this content. We want for you to get it. We want for you to share it. We want for you to get it out into the world, so people who are binge watching Netflix will actually do something to create passive streams of income. So when they go back to work and we go back to real life, that we can have those incomes pouring into our bank account as we speak. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're up. The next speaker up is coming. It's our last speaker, Hoff Mikado, how I generated $171,000 from Airbnb.
Amazing expert. We're here with Kimberly, who is the rocket fuel for entrepreneurs. She's on a mission to help you launch your business to new heights. Nobody lives out loud better than Kimberly.